Eat it. Oxygen. Why we
Don't forget to follow Grit Daily News as well as me, your host, Loralyn Mears, everywhere on social media. And how about throwing 4 or 5 stars our way if you're listening to Apple or Spotify? Subscribe to our show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Grit Daily News podcast. It's the Grit Files, and I'm your host, Loralyn Mears, sounding a little froggier than usual. So, okay, my voice is about an octave lower than it normally is, but that's okay because I'm going to be well matched with today's guest then, who is Michael Esposito. He has founded DenTen Insurance and has a whole bevy of different skills that he brings to the table, really taking content marketing and engagement to new levels. In fact, I had the wonderful opportunity of not only being a guest on his podcast, but he showed me how high the standard is on everything from the preamble and prep and the setup and the practice and then the delivery and then the end engagement and even uniting all of his other guests together. It's incredible. It's something I haven't experienced before. So let's hope Michael can share his tips on really how to grow business, because this is what he does. Hi, Michael.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. This is very exciting. It's nice to be the guest and not the host.
Well, isn't it though, right? To be on that other side of the microphone and maybe talk to us, like, let's open with that. What's that experience like for you so far? Are you judgy? Are you thinking, oh, I wish this was this was that? I mean, talk to us about what's in your head.
Well, yeah, I mean, in your introduction there, I think it's important to share a little bit there is that to come into something judgment-free. When you speak about content marketing, it's releasing and removing judgment of expectations of what you expect people to want out of what you're giving them or expect them to think of you. It's really just share, just be there to give. And the same thing in content marketing, that's what it is. It's share content to give to your audience. And your audience can be listeners, like what we have here on the Grit File. Your audience can be in the sales process. It could be prospects. That's your audience. And if you're there to give them something, give them information, that's the content. And remove that judgment from, well, they actually need this, or they might want to hear that, or they need to know about our company. Remove all of that, those past judgments that we were taught. Go in to give. And from there, build that relationship, expand on that relationship. And believe it or not, a lot of times they'll remember you in a positive light and they'll reach out to you when they really need your service or need your help or want to learn more about what you have to offer. So that's huge right there. I think that's a really great way to start.
And the underlying theme that I'm hearing here, and I'm sure our audience teased it out too, because there's a few smart bears out there in our listenership. It's all about authenticity. Right? Show up, be your authentic self. When you're trying to be something else or you're trying to paint this other picture that's not real, people see through it. They have their nonsense filters up.
That's right. Yeah, everybody knows what's going on in our sales calls. They know that when you're going in and saying, hey, how are you? I'm Michael from DenTen. They're going, okay, what's next? What's he going to sell me? So they're aware of that. So be yourself. And who are you, right? So that's what I teach my salespeople is, who are you at a family party? Who are you at a networking event? Are you the person that's going to pitch your family members insurance or anything else that you're selling? Probably not, right? Because you're somebody who is easy to get along with. You're probably going to talk to them about, for me, my kid's ballet recital, or what's going on in my community as to spring cleanings ahead of us, right? And seeing all the beautiful flowers come about. Have that same conversation with your audience. Have that same conversation when you're prospecting or meeting new people. Don't just dive into selling them something. And so speaking to authenticity, I think that just speaks to be yourself in everything you do. My business coach and I, we speak a lot about living a harmonious life. And that harmony that we're talking about in living a harmonious life is not separating work from life, but bringing them both together. And so you're not a different person when you're at work and a different person when you're home. You're the same person. And that's part of being authentic, is that you're the same person in both places. So if you're a salesy person at work, then man, you're probably a salesy person at home going, hey, how can I get my wife to do the laundry for me? Hey, honey, if you I mean, she doesn't want to hear that from me. I'll tell you that right now. But if I just ask her nicely and say, hey, love, I got a lot on my plate right now. I really need some help with the laundry. Could you do my laundry for me? She's going to do it for me because I asked her, I told her what's going on in my life. And it's the same with if I'm networking with people of like, hey, I actually just had this call. I just got off of a call like this. I didn't speak to this person for a little bit. And I reached out to him and we just had a networking Zoom just like this here. And we kind of caught up a little bit. And I said, Chris, the truth is, I need help with referrals. And I reached out to you because I know you work with business owners and I need help with referrals. I just got licensed in your state and I'm hoping that you might be able to make some introductions. And he appreciated that. That's what people appreciate. They want the real you.
That's right. Well, those are part of my mantras. I mean, transparency, authenticity, integrity. I mean, this is the kind of thing. I think this is why we got along so well and are so much fun being a guest on your podcast because we were able to tap into that. Now, some of the things, let's catch our audience up because you talked about DenTen Insurance. So when I introduced you, didn't really make it all that clear on two things. One, that you are the founder of this insurance company. And two, tell us the lovely reason and the story behind the name of DenTen.
Oh, so cool. Thank you so much for asking that question. So I'll answer a question that you asked me right from the beginning, which was how does it feel to be a guest? And this is what makes it feel so good. So I'm usually the host and I have less nerves going in as the host because I feel like I'm like, hey, I'm just going to ask you questions and you got to figure out the answer. So it's great being a host and you feel a little bit on the spot being the guest, but these are the moments that make it feel good to be a guest, to share a story like this. So for the longest time, I had this idea of an insurance company and I wanted to build this beautiful insurance company. And part of my public speaking background, Aristotle is the father of, not Aristotle. Oh, shucks, I'm coming up with the wrong name. But I'm thinking of ethos, pathos, and logos. And the forefather of that, and ethos speaking about someone's character and their honesty. And so I was coming up with the idea, I'm going to name my company Ethos. Well, for all of you out there and a little bit of a marketing tip, there's 2 insurance companies named Ethos. So I'd be marketing myself against 2 companies before I even get out into the field. So important, know who you're marketing against. With that, we went back to the drawing board, my team and I, and we started thinking of names. And what else speaks to me and speaks to my heart is my family. And why am I doing this? Why am I working so hard to build a company that I believe will create a legacy for my family? I'm doing it for my kids. And so my kids' names came to mind. And my oldest daughter, her name is Denise. And my youngest daughter, her name is Tenley. Today they're 7 and 5 years old. They've grown a year. So what we did was I put together the name of Denise and Tenley and mashed it up into DenTen. And that's where we come up with DenTen Insurance. And part of the reason for the mashup was a little inspired by the social media platform TikTok. And at DenTen, we talk about being insurance for the next generation. I have a vision to build out a tech platform. I currently have a huge tech stack in our organization of CRMs, AMSs, which are meaningless to all of your ears right now. But my point is that we use technology, we leverage technology to make the buying process easier for our customers and the selling process easier for our brokers. And so the reason why the name was inspired by TikTok was because to me, that's at the forefront of social media and technology in social media today. We don't know what the next 10 years look like, but that's what helped inspire the name DenTen.
And it allows you that foundation that you need to establish yourself as a company when you're using this as a lens and saying, okay, this is the current times. This is what is being reflected now, and you're reflecting it back. And that's great. It gives you that stronghold into it. But let's peel it back a little bit.
Sure.
Everybody has some sense of, vulnerability, of self-doubt, of all of this kind of thing where we get those nagging voices in our heads that say, imposter syndrome, or I can't do this, or I shouldn't do this. And in your case here, you've named your company and your whole future and vision for how you're supporting your family after your family. So that's kind of got another edge to it too, where it adds some pressure. Talk to us about the gritty experiences that you've had that allowed you to really separate yourself from them and say, you know what, I'm going for it. I'm putting the team together. We're doing it. Talk to us about that thought process.
Yeah. And, the name of your podcast is The Grit Files, and it's all about grit. And I think it's more about the journey than it is about the end result, at least in this conversation. You just correct me if I'm wrong on that. So the end result is the present moment. There's a future, there's plenty more to come, and there's more that we're working towards. But as of right now, the grit, the persistence, the work that I put into that we're going to speak about got me to where I am today. And it wasn't easy. Where I am today, I'm a lot more confident. I'm a better leader. We were able to accomplish getting an SBA loan for our company. We have a sales team. We have an admin team. We have a marketing team, a finance team. We're using our resources all around us. But to your question there, you pose a question and you use the word imposter syndrome. And that is what holds us back from accomplishing everything I just spoke about. And then, like I said, that's today. I have plans for the future, for tomorrow, for next month, for next year, for the next 5-10 years. I can't allow imposter syndrome to hold me back from that. So let's speak about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is when you are not living in harmony with your authentic self. It's when you are trying to be somebody that you're not, and you don't believe in yourself enough to be that person yet. And that might sound a little confusing. It sounds a little confusing coming out of my mouth right now, but I'm going to break that down for you for a second here. You're trying to be somebody. So I was trying to be the founder, the CEO, a leader of a sales organization, and I know nothing about that. I was a salesperson. I came out as a salesperson at an insurance agency. I was at the bottom of the barrel, right? I reported to a manager who reported to 3 other managers. And yet I'm going to come out and build a company. So immediately I am putting myself at a higher level, a higher standard than I am accustomed to and used to, know about, or anything about. So immediately imposter syndrome sets in, anxiety sets in, all of these different feelings set in. And by the way, that's normal. So now once you realize, hey, it's normal because I'm not a manager, I'm not a CEO yet, but I want to be, and I'm putting myself at that level. It's normal to feel like I don't belong there. So you got to start putting in the work. This is the grittiness that you're talking about. This is the work now that you start putting in. So what do? I hire a business coach. I hire a business coach who we start talking about, Michael, where are you today? Where are you today? How do we get you to here? What are the next steps to get you to level up? What do you need to do? What do you need to learn about? So I start reading books. I download a bunch of Audible books, autobiographies on different founders, on Richard Branson and Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, and the list goes on, and all these great founders. I start listening to them. I then, Loralyn, start a podcast. I start a podcast where I interview people that I aspire to become. I interview them to learn about them, so that I can then learn more about myself and start incorporating that into the person I'm trying to become. So remember, we're talking about the grit that it takes to get there so that we can get rid of imposter syndrome. So this is it. It's not easy. It's not easy to sit in an interview and interview somebody who is 15 levels above you, who you wish you could be. It's not easy, but you sit there and you listen and you take notes, and then you start applying the lessons that they teach you. You start applying the information that they teach you. They mention a book, you write it down, you read that book, you make notes on that book, and you call them back up and you say, hey, I read this book. Here's some insights I had about it. Here's some questions I had about it. And you start learning from that. That's all part of that process. As you start doing that, your confidence you start gaining momentum in your confidence. You start becoming more confident, and you start getting up another notch closer to that person that you're trying to become. So as you start doing that, you're building your confidence, and eventually that imposter syndrome starts dissipating. It starts going away a little bit. Yeah, maybe you're not exactly the founder or CEO that you want to be or that you aspire to be, but you're getting closer to it. And just like with public speaking, so I teach public speaking as well. Just like in public speaking, as you start becoming more confident, those nerves start going away. You start becoming the speaker that you want to be. You start becoming the leader that you want to be. You start becoming the confident CEO that you want to be. And you're going to aspire for more and set the bar higher. But because you learned in the very beginning how to get to that first level, you just start applying those same gritty skills to get to the next level. And again, building that confidence up. And for me now, while I had that anxiety to get to that first level for me, and I had that imposter syndrome, now I have another level that I'm climbing to. I would say that I don't suffer from imposter syndrome. I more suffer from, I don't know, trying to make it syndrome, but it's really like, I know the tools now. I have the tools. I work with the people that help me get there. And I believe in myself that I will get there and accomplish that goal. And I give myself time. It's another thing that we don't do enough of, is giving ourselves time and giving ourselves grace, allowing forgiveness for our mistakes. And I give myself that. And I know that as long as I keep putting in the work, keep being gritty, keep being persistent, keep being determined, I'm going to get to that next level.
Oh, and there's so much in there in what you've said, because a key part of it is, right, giving yourself, like you said, the time and grace. Everything takes longer than you think it will, right? If you say, oh, within a year, it might be 2, right? Maybe 3. There's that piece of it. And you talk about the merits of coaching. Well, I'm a firm believer in coaching, and Coach Susan Joffrey's, now deceased, but she was wonderful with her message to the world, which said, feel the fear and do it anyway. Right. And that's just such power that you want to do. And then I have a funny sidebar question. How long is your TBR, to be read list? Because I get book suggestions all the time from my guests.
Well, I can pull up my Audible list right now. So I use Audible. It's been a blessing to me. I follow the philosophy of focus on what you're good at, focus on your strengths, and allow somebody else to take on your weaknesses. And that's why I have such a robust team, is that I have a lot of weaknesses.
We all do. I wouldn't say you have a lot, but we all have some, for sure, right? I mean, none of us are perfect.
Of course, yeah. But to that point, so I have dyslexia. So I hope that anybody that's listening right now, if you suffer from any type of learning disability, know that there's people around you who can help you and overcome them. And then know that there's other ways to learn. And so for me, reading a book was a task that I honestly never read a book. And I used to be proud of it because it was the only way I could accept the fact that I never read a book. I was like, I don't read books. I just listen to people. Well, I listen to people. I started learning that that's a strength of mine, that I listen to people and I listen to things and I hear things and I incorporate them in my life. So Audible became a blessing. So rather than sitting there and trying to force myself to read Think and Grow Rich, for instance, as one of my first learning books, instead of doing that, download it from Audible and listen to it and do other things while I listen, and I absorb the content and put it in my life. So let me just, to answer your question, if I go to my library and go to my wish list, I have 35 titles. It tells me at the top. I have 35 titles in my wish list. And the other thing that I started doing, just as like a bit of a strategy, because they kept entering my wish list when somebody would mention a book, is if I get a book recommendation 2 to 3 times from the same person or from different people, I don't even put it in my wish list anymore. I just buy it. I just go, I'm buying it and I will read it next. 2 to 3 times, there's something about that book that I must read.
I follow much of the same practice, but I also gave up once I got to 25. And I'm like, I can't. I'll be reading forever. And I mean, I'm an avid reader, but there's so many hours in a day. So talk to us about how you've changed in this experience so far in founding company, right? That's a loaded question. What have you experienced?
It's a wonderful question. For our listeners out there, I just rolled my eyes like, oh my God, how much I've changed. I was making a joke. We were at a family party this past weekend. It was my niece's first birthday, and it was a great party. And my uncle, who's been a mentor in my life and just a tremendous supporter of everything I do, was sharing a story about me about a couple years ago. And it was an embarrassing story, right? So we won't go into details there. And I looked at him and I said, oh, you're speaking about Michael 2.0. And he goes, what? And I said, you're speaking about Michael 2.0. He goes, what does that mean? I said, well, I keep evolving and I keep leveling up just like a computer program. And he goes, what is it? So where are you at today? I said, well, I'm at Michael 6.0 right now. And he goes, 6.0. He goes, where are you trying to go to? I said, I don't know. You just keep growing, right? So then I was in a conversation with a cousin of mine who we share just a multitude of embarrassing stories. And of course, when you get together at these family events, you start reliving these stories. And so I paused our conversation for a minute and I shouted over to my uncle. I said, hey, my cousin's bringing me back to Michael 4.0. I need to get away from him. So right now I am constantly learning and growing, and I love it. It's enjoyable, and it's something that I get to share with my daughters, which is really important to me, that we're always learning, and now they've learned that learning doesn't stop with school. Learning continues after, and I'm an example of that for them. So that's what's really important to me, is that they're learning by watching me and the things that I'm doing. They learn from my wife. My wife's an educator, so they learn from her as well. We're constantly learning and changing. And I think if you're not changing, I think you should start looking at yourself and start wondering why. And just start wondering why. Ask yourself the question, why am I not changing? And, go from there.
What has thrown you for a loop that our listeners can learn from?
I mean, there's a lot of things that throw me for a loop. That question throws me for a loop. I think it's more about how to manage your mental state when you get thrown for a loop, more than it is what loop gets thrown at you. So what I mean by that is I took a coaching program with Matt Alfonso, and he does something called the Mindful Living Coaching Program. And in there, we talk about the gap. And you might know the gap. Everybody calls the gap something different. I have a friend who's in AA, and he speaks about the gap and says it's called the pause. You can call it anything you want, but it's that moment in time where you have a split second, a hair of a moment to make a decision. And so if you can find what we call the gap, whatever you want to call it, if you can find that, if you can start being more present in every situation in your world, in your life, in every conversation, I'm talking about conversation, just in this conversation, find that moment, that pause to where you make a decision. When you asked me that question, there was a moment that I made a decision as to what I was going to respond with. So we always have that moment. So when we have that time to think about how we're going to respond, are we going to respond and cause a positive situation to unfold? Or are we going to respond and cause a negative situation to unfold? I like to, and I think most of us want to, lean towards a positive situation. So in that moment, to try to find, how can I figure out the positive solution, the positive response, the positive way of thinking in all of this? And the other thing I'll bring into that is gratitude. Is if you're grateful for your current circumstance, if you're grateful for anything, and look, all of your listeners, I mean, I'm sure you might have some listeners abroad, but everybody listening right now, you're probably living in America. And if you live in America, there are so many things that we're ungrateful for that we could be grateful for, which is just a paved road, in comparison to other countries that don't even have that. Food, water, and then our lives of just getting up in the morning and touching the floor. In that moment, if you can be grateful for those things, anything else that's thrown your way is going to be so simple to solve. And it will just take time. And we all make mistakes. Give yourself some grace for that loop.
Oh, and I love the forethought you put into that, because it is all about how we handle ourselves in the situations, right? That level of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, what we do. Now, that said, you said we all make mistakes. So perfect segue. Thank you, Michael. I'm giving you one undo button. You got to hit it once and you got to change one thing in your life, personally or professionally. What do you undo?
I would say I wouldn't undo anything. I would implement something a lot sooner into my life. My brother is 9 years younger than me. So I'm 40 today, he's 30 today. It's just our birthdays that make us seem like we're 10 years apart. Um, and he's doing things that I wish I did at 30. In other words, being more reflective about the things he does in work, being more conscious about the way he hangs out with friends of, is this good for what I'm trying to accomplish at work and in my life? And so what I mean by that is, I think all of my personal experiences and mistakes have led me to where I am today. So, and also successes, by the way, have led me to where I am today. And so therefore I wouldn't change anything, but I would say that I wish that I did have some of the coaching, the mentorship, and the resources that I have today back when I was 30. Now I'm going to completely delete that sentence with a proverb that I like to share on a very regular basis, a Chinese proverb that I really do believe, and is why what I just said probably is meaningless, is the teachers will appear when the student is ready. And so at 30, I might not have been ready for those teachers. They might have been all around me, they probably were, but I wasn't the person that I am today. And so I'm sorry, I don't have the right answer for you, but I would say I would stick by that proverb and believe it to be true, that the teachers will appear when a student is ready. And that's the same thing with opportunity. Opportunity will appear when you're ready to receive it.
Oh, true. I mean, bingo. I'm sitting here going, that's absolutely it, right? I mean, we're always being bombarded by these different lessons and things and ideas, and either we're open to receiving them, it's our time, or it's not. So last question to wrap things up and bring things home. A little less serious. Now, if we got a peek into your closet and we looked at your footwear, and there was one pair of footwear in there that embodied your personality, who you are, personified you, Michael Esposito, founder of DenTen Insurance. What is that pair of shoes, boots, whatever we're looking at? Describe it and why it embodies you.
My Jordans. I love my sneakers. I really do. And I would say my Jordans. So to keep this answer short and concise for you, I have a pair of Jordans, of Michael Jordan sneakers, if you're not aware of what Jordans are, right? And I believe they are the 13s. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they're the 13s. My brother did buy those for me not too long ago. But the reason why they personify me is I'll just describe them and just make some relations to them. One, they're a basketball sneaker. I love basketball. I'm very passionate about playing basketball, watching basketball, the history of basketball. I just enjoy it. It's just a passion of mine. Grew up with it. Was never great at it, but enjoy it and still get to play it today. So that's one piece of it. The other thing is with Jordans is that they're a sneaker that you wear and feel instantly cool. Like you just put them on and you're like, boom, you are cool. You are the coolest person on the block. And not that I think I'm the coolest person on the block, but when we talk about that imposter syndrome, it's that I want to be, right? I aspire to be the guy that you want to speak with at a networking event or at a family party or at a party. I aspire to be that guy. And that's part of my personality, and part of why I want to be a founder and a CEO is I am the face of my company. And so I need to be the guy that people want to speak with personally, right? You need to know as an employee at DenTen that your founder is willing to speak with anybody you put in front of them, and he's going to be able to build a rapport and relationship with them for you. And so that is what I feel like my Jordans do for me when I put them on. And then they're fresh and clean, which everybody who knows me knows I am a shower person. I love taking at least 2 showers a day. So I love my shower. It's a great time to meditate. It's a great time to think. And I love being fresh and clean, just like Jordans. So there you go.
That's fabulous. You talk about basketball. I loved the Carolina Duke game. Talk about a thriller for the ages. And then, oh my God, the Kansas Carolina game. Just, yeah. What didn't it have, right? I mean, just fantastic.
History in the making right there. But yeah, so get your Jordans out.
There you go. Well, Michael Esposito, founder of DenTen Insurance and host of his eponymous podcast, which I've been so grateful to be a guest on. Thank you so much for being a part of the Grit Files today, and we wish you tremendous success in growing your insurance company and really being the model that already you're saying you aspire to be. But from my perspective, I really see that you already are. And so thank you. I've learned much from you.
Thanks so much, Loralyn. I appreciate it.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?